from Angelia. What is the interest rate on the deposits? I'm assuming tenant to landlord deposits. And is it the same for the estate agents? The estate agents board, if I'm not mistaken, and she's asking about the percentage.
So good question. Obviously, interests are only to be paid by law in terms of residential properties. So only in terms of the Rental Housing Act, should a rental deposit earn interest in commercial, retail, industrial property, you don't need to, it doesn't have to earn interest, but if the lease agreement says it will, obviously it has to, but not a legal requirement. Rental Housing Act simply states that the deposit must earn interest at a percentage similar to that of the interest rate on a savings account with a financial institution. So it's a low interest rate. It's usually going to be, well, savings account with a financial institution. Remember, Bruno isn't a financial institution, so that's not the kind of interest rates we need to look at. We have to look at banks, actual banks. So typically ABSA, FNB, those guys, have a look at the interest rates. That's what it has to earn. But remember, the Estate Agency Affairs Act was replaced on the 1st of February this year, 2022, with the Property Practitioners Act. Now, the Property Practitioners Act doesn't have the provision that the Estate Agency Affairs Act had, that your interest can be accrued partially to the EAAB and then partially to the tenant. It's silent on the matter, so the assumption is that we can only fall back on the Rental Housing Act, meaning your full interest must accrue on a rental deposit in a residential property to the tenant. Your full interest must accrue to them. Theoretically, there's still a bit of a gray area around accruing to the PPRA, but the thing is the Act doesn't allow for that. So it's not, we can't take an old piece of legislation like the Estate Agency Affairs Act and they now bring that into the new legislation where it doesn't deal with that. If the parties specifically agree to that, remember the interest rate, that's the portion, say the 50% that would have accrued of the interest, 50% to the tenant, 50% to the EAAB in the days of the Estate Agency Affairs Act. That amount, and that's what I'm saying to the estate agents at this stage as well, that amount could be over the period of the 2 years or a year or 2 years, could be, you know, maybe 60 Rand. But that's the kind of thing that's going to throw your audit out. So there's really no financial benefit. There's no legal requirement for you to have it accrue to the PPRA. Actually, the PPA doesn't deal with that. So I would steer away from that. And my advice is let's stick to the very clinical side of the law. Look at this. Look at the Rental Housing Act. It says full interest must accrue to the tenant, and that deposit together with the interest can be utilized, obviously, for anything that is due in terms of the lease agreement, so or any damage caused to the property. So I would rather stay on the safe side of the law and not throw my books out with 60 Rand over a period of a year.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.